and how you see the future of,
Pat.
of Burlington.
You're on.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we're on. Right there.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Burlington. Good evening and welcome. I'm sorry for the little delay, a little mix-up. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. And this will be, I should say, our 90th edition of Burlington and Beyond. And we're going to have fireworks for the 100th, but we're planning that. So you want to be sure to watch not only this, but the next 10 shows. Tonight we're very, very privileged. This is the first time that we have, Larry, Way, and myself have had a father-son combination on the program. And I'm especially privileged because I've known these people personally for quite a while. And they both hold important positions, and they're a big part of what Burlington is all about. Not only today, but I'm certain in the future as well. So sit back, and we're going to ask them a lot of tough questions and some easy ones too. But first I want you to meet.
And if I could just interject, Pat.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Of course, we've had John Quincy Adams. We've had George H.W. and George W. Bush. And now Burlington has their own Jim and Adam Tigges.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
And this
Can we show them?
Jim Tigges, selectman, longtime police officer. I'm sure you've seen him around town. And this is Adam, his son, who is not only involved in town meeting, but he is an important person in one of the local banks. I think, can I name?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
And what is the name of the bank?
TD Bank.
TD Bank. And he is, I'm sure, very, very important with regard to the bank and its growth. And once again, a big part of Burlington. So we're going to try to find out a little bit about them, know a lot about them. I think we ought to begin by telling us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been in Burlington, how you enjoy Burlington, where you came, a little bit of your history. Let's start with you, Jim.
Certainly, and Pat, thank you, and Larry, thank you for having us on. I've been in Burlington a long time, since it's about 51 years now, almost my entire life. My parents moved out here from East Boston back in the 60s. I'm one of 10. Two of them had been married, and one was in the service when we moved from East Boston. So my parents moved 7 of us here into a 3-bedroom ranch with 1 bathroom, which was challenging at times, and we were definitely not the Brady Bunch, let's put it that way. But we moved out to the country, and here I am 51 years later, still in my town that I love.
But
That's great.
Not in the country anymore.
No.
Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been to school. Mm-hmm. I know you're well schooled, and tell us about what you've done. How long you've been in Burlington? All your life, of course.
Right.
And you love Burlington.
Definitely.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you again for the introduction. It's very nice words. My name is Adam. Jim Tigges' son, and also Simone Tigges'. Hi, Mom.
Very important.
Yes, can't forget to say hi. So I've lived in Burlington my whole life, 26 years. Went to the same.
You're 26?
I am.
Oh my God, are you old?
No. So I went. It's been a family affair in Burlington. I went to the same elementary school as my dad. We had the same principal even.
Oh.
And everything that like you said, I went to school in Burlington. I played in Burlington Parks as a kid. I work in Burlington now full time, and the town is basically the center of our universe. So.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Bridgewater State. I studied political science. Did a couple different honors works on different areas around the world about resource allocation. The politics and international agreements that go along with that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So you studied for your future in Burlington politics. That's
Oh, yeah.
what you went to college for.
Yeah, well, the melting sea ice might eventually have something to do with Burlington, but as far as I can tell, I have a little extra time
Adam,
to prepare.
tell us also, what are you involved in in town?
Yeah, so I'm a Precinct 6 town meeting member. It's my first term, definitely an educational first 3 years, being involved with an elected position. But I've had kind of, an advantage of having a very experienced and professional mentor. So I got a little extra tutoring on the side on how stuff works, but definitely taken a hands-on approach the first time around.
That's great, great. Jim, you're involved in the police department. You have been for quite a while now, right?
In my 31st year at the police department. That's correct.
31 years
That's
on
correct.
the Burlington Police. Wow, God bless you. And this is your first try or your first shot at being a selectman.
Yes, it is.
Are you enjoying it?
I'm loving every minute. Well, I'm loving almost every minute of it. We did vote to lift the full water ban last night, so
That
Yep.
part you loved.
that'll make life a little easier when you do impose something like that if that affects the whole town. It does get tasking at times. People are upset. They don't like it. We don't like it. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Sure.
The residents, I want to thank them for their cooperation. We hit. They cooperated. We hit 2.6 million gallons a day, which is around our norm during the winter. They didn't want to do it, but they did, and I want to thank you, and I know the other selectmen want to thank them for their cooperation and getting us through this part of it. And there are more steps to come with the water. It's a work in progress, and we'll get there at some point. But we're better today than we were yesterday.
Go ahead, Larry. Your turn.
Well, I'm not sure it's quite time to get into the issues, but how do you work together as father or son? Do you discuss some of the issues that are going on, either in committee or town meeting? And should there be discussion between selectmen and town meeting when sometimes there are opposite views?
I wouldn't refer to it as discussion, so to speak. Anything that might be issue related, believe it or not, I can literally be sitting across the room from Adam and he'll email it to me because we want to make sure
It's
that
in the same house?
in the same room because we want to make sure that we don't cross
Yeah.
any lines.
Yep.
Couldn't he just do this or this? And
Well,
That
he,
doesn't work?
at times, I'll admit he's a little more professional than I am, but he
think
keeps
this-
me on my toes.
knows how to use a
It's a
smartphone
darn
a little
bank.
easier, right?
Oh yeah, it's
A
not
little
hard
more
for me.
experience for that
Yeah, but
than this
definitely.
generation.
Yeah, like my father was saying, it's definitely everything by the books. Got to make sure that the town trusted us to do our jobs well, and so trust is important.
And to that point, there hasn't been any issues. There've been no issues with Adam and I, and as far as conflict.
Well,
you want to chime in here? So.
Yeah, I'll give a funny anecdote, I guess. The first vote that town meeting was expected to take when I was first elected was at the special town meeting in 2016. And it was on whether or not to join a suit against the Board of Appeals that my dad sat on. So I used to joke saying, I'll vote on whether or not to sue the board my dad's on if I still have to cut the grass and take out the trash, and we'll renegotiate a few things and then we'll figure out. But I did abstain, just out of respect of professionalism. And actually, that abstention, the current town moderator asked me to fill in on the bylaw review committee because she said if someone can look at something objectively, that's the kind of person that she at the time would want to fill the position. So, it definitely pays off to do things the right way.
So you're really working at that, doing things the right way above board.
Right, yeah.
Is there a time you feel you need to take minutes when you guys are discussing? Because apparently, from what we're hearing from Amy, those things are discoverable if you talk with other town officials. So do you keep minutes or do you keep your texts? And
We keep everything. The emails, they're never deleted. Like I said, I could literally be sitting across the room from him, and he'll email to me, and I'll have to email back because that's the right way of doing things.
does that happen when you're sitting on the board? He'll email you his opinion.
Oh
No, no.
All above board then.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
really,
interesting.
it's strange. I can understand what you're doing, and I think it's very, very, it is to be commended. But it's, we've gotten to that point where the records all have to be straight. They all have to know what has to.
I actually, I don't want to say joke about it, but my wife works in the medical field. My daughter's a teacher. our special ed teacher. Adam is in banking, and I'm in law enforcement. So our dinner table, when my daughter was living at home, was very, very quiet because we couldn't talk to each other about anything. My wife had to worry about HIPAA, and Lindsay had to worry about the special ed, the protections under special ed, and Adam can't talk about finances. So we had some quiet dinners.
Not even how did your day go? Or anything?
Well, we couldn't talk to each other about work. So
That's funny.
While we're on the topic of conflict of interest, there's been some concern among some town meeting members that you have people from the fire department, police department, and used to be even veterans and what's the other department there, all that get supervised by the town administrator, and yet you pick the town administrator. So do you see any conflict of interest in regards to your role on the police force and role in the administration of the town?
no, I don't see it because I have that. I build that wall. I separate my work is my work. My selectman's position is my selectman's position. They don't cross paths. I keep everything professional. I make sure that there's no conflict. As far as, like when Adam mentioned the abstention, I know there are other boards in town. I know there's been abstentions at school committee. There's been abstentions at Ways and Means. There've been abstentions at planning board, and there've been numerous abstentions at town meeting.
Right.
Every board has abstentions. People, if we didn't know our citizenry, then we'd never have an abstention. But we know our citizenry. We know our neighbors. We know our coworkers. We know our friends, and so you're always going to know someone somewhere.
Right.
I know it's only been a year, but have you abstained? To
I have
potential
abstained,
conflict
yes.
of interest?
I have on the police patrolman's contract.
Okay, and possibly the police budget, when the
On-
selectmen are asked, would you abstain? from
Yes,
that?
I have abstained on that.
Okay.
My turn, your turn.
Well, I just wanted
Go
to
ahead,
turn to
go
Adam
ahead.
and ask if there's, I guess you gave an example of needing to abstain
Mhm.
regarding your dad sitting on the Board of Appeals.
Oh yeah, yeah. My answer to that is the best way to let people know that you're doing things, above board is to act that way in everything you do, because then there's never the question. And that's what as somebody whose job it is to enforce the law, I've learned a good amount from. So, yeah, just following the regulations, doing everything by the book. It helps. It helps you to not only do what you want to do, but feel good about what you're doing, because you
Right.
know you're doing it the right
Feel
way.
good is important.
And do you have any concern about your dad's potential conflict of interest serving on the police and part of the administration?
No, I know that he, if it's necessary, will recuse himself from anything. When he was running for selectman, we were talking about a little bit earlier that I actually printed out the state ethics guidelines and would quiz him on different scenarios. If someone asked you about a police issue at a selectman meeting, like can you comment on it? What can't you say? Things like that. You want to go about a way that causes the fewest amount of headaches for yourself.
Yep.
You're going to get enough thrown at you by life, so minimize the ones you create your own.
In a way, to a follow-up to that, in a way, it almost forces you to, I don't want to say behave better, but keeping that in the back of your mind, I have to make sure that I'm thinking that along those lines, a step above what someone who wouldn't have a potential conflict. So I'm thinking consciously, let's make sure this is done the right way, the absolute right way. So I think the two jobs complement each other. In being a selectman, you need a Rolodex in your head.
Sure.
31 years in the police department, I've built up a nice Rolodex in my head, so they supplement each other and complement each other. But when you're thinking, I have to make sure I don't cross that line.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking above and beyond what a person would normally be thinking.
What other selectmen might be thinking or not thinking?
Well, other persons.
You're
I don't want to
required to go
pinpoint.
a little bit further, is what I'm,
I have to take
if I'm
that extra
understanding you
step.
correctly.
Yeah, I have to take that extra step to make sure everything is above the board.
I would imagine, after describing it the way you do, being insistent on keeping them separate. After a while, it becomes automatic that's the way. You don't even. This is the way I'm supposed to do it, and that's the way I do
Yes,
it, and that's all there is to it. There's no alternative.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. you have to consciously make sure in the beginning,
Yeah.
but then you do develop, memory and practice, and you learn right away.
Yeah.
If you see something, you just shut it down.
Yeah. Situations are repetitive too. A lot of the same thing. What comes up. You know where it belongs in this department or it belongs in that department. Anyway, can I want to find out a little bit about their history. You've been in Burlington a very, very long time. You not quite so long, but long.
26
How do you
years,
see Burlington now, as opposed to pretty much when you first started here?
Well, the pig farms are gone.
You're smiling.
Yeah, because I remember, brings back memories of the swill bucket in the ground where we used to put our food for the pig farms. And Burlington has changed quite a bit. We do have our commercial side, or what I affectionately call the city of Burlington, because it's a vibrant side. It's
Yep.
mostly commercial. The streets are wider, restaurants and hotels and stores. So that's the urban part of Burlington. Where I live, and I know where you live, that side, other than a house coming down and maybe a slightly larger house going up in its place, and I mean that a little jokingly,
Or sometimes a much larger house.
sometimes a
going
much
up.
larger house, but the configuration of the neighborhoods where we are hasn't changed since I was a
Yeah,
little kid.
it is.
The
It still has
neighborhoods
the
are
same.
still the
Yeah,
same.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
when I was a little kid, I would ride I'll never forget, in third grade, going to my best friend's house, I would ride my bike. I'd have to cross Cambridge Street as an 8-year-old on a bike. That won't happen today.
Yeah.
So it was a little, quieter time, not as much traffic, but it's growth, and the Burlington has grown. But what I love is we have that delineation between the commercial and the residential.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's-
it's ideal.
yeah.
Actually, I was thinking that even with the Duffy properties, 19 and a half, they will be pretty much the only commercial center, in a very residential area, a highly residential area, which is kind of interesting. People don't have to go. I'm talking about Burlington citizens on this side of. They don't have to go to the mall. They can. They don't have to go to there to buy things. I would imagine. I don't know what they're going to have in that complex, but I'm sure there'll be some of everything.
Well-
Restaurants, and I'm sure there'll be retail shops of one kind or another.
It'll almost be like the way Burlington Center used to be. We used to have a butcher shop.
Yeah.
We used to have a hardware store.
Yeah.
We used to have a post office down there. We used to have
Yes.
a florist down there. So I envision the Duffy property, the old Building 19, that everybody still calls it, will be. I'm assuming some stores like that will be in there. It's just a
Yes.
guess at this point. But we're going to start to see that town center. It's pulling the town center together.
Together,
It's pulling
exactly.
It's pulling the upper governmental side where the common is
Yep.
to the lower center where the other businesses are, and it's connecting them.
Yeah. My hope is that I think the town purchased 33 Center Street, the one that they just refurbished, right?
Right.
And the building after that, the one on the corner, must be 35 or whatever it is, that number.
Yep.
I understand that we have an option on that if it ever goes up for sale. It's a bit of a dream. You've got the fire station, you've got all of the government of Burlington in one side of one street. I think that's kind of neat. I don't know if there are many towns that have something like that.
There aren't that I've seen. I know if you look at the towns around us, their government is fractured. They'll
Right.
have the police station at an old school, or they'll have the police station or a fire station
Yep.
somewhere else, or the town hall will be separate.
Yep.
We do have that advantage. It's a colonial building you're referring to.
Too, that,
Right on the corner of Sears and Center. But that, I think, is great to have them. Everybody, my friend Joyce Delianis calls it the Avenue of Kindness. From the fire station up to the human services, everything residents need are right in that
right
row.
there. Yeah, yeah. I think it's ideal. really good.
Pat,
Okay.
what if we get back to just a little bit of the
go
history
ahead.
of our guests? And let's start with you. Why did you get involved in town politics? Because it seems like you and your dad kind of came on the scene pretty much the same year. And I remember you had also been in contact with somebody on the library committee just wanting to know a little bit about it. And so I was very impressed that you were very interested in how the town operated.
Yeah.
And so I secretly was hoping that you would get involved.
Oh well.
Glad to see you
Thank you.
in the scene.
Well, I'll say that based on how my family operates is, a large predictor of how.
A family decision?
Well, I'll say that my father, he moved here from East Boston because his parents thought it would be a better place for him to grow up and have a good education. My mother, her family came from Jamaica. They moved to the United States because they wanted to have a good community to raise her in. And so everybody in my family is very focused on not just what's happening inside the own, four walls of their own house, but what's happening, down the street, around the corner, and all that. So that's, I guess you can say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
But you seem to be getting involved, jumping in about the same time. Now, I
Well-
understand that you were involved earlier, but just all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, we're hearing of both your names. So was there a joint decision at that point?
I might say that I am the beneficiary of his previous experience. If it seems that I've gotten to where I am pretty quick, it's definitely because I've had a strong mentor and somebody who, I guess for my luck, has had a chance to find out the hard way about how things work before I had to. So I just kind of got the answers as a cheat sheet, maybe.
But you also had the wherewithal to go to school. You graduated. That big move in the right direction. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think I just would have added to that your willingness to volunteer also had a big part in where you are today.
Yeah, even with the bank that I work at today, we still try to find community events to be involved in. We take a big van, drive it to the Boston Food Bank, bring stuff to Burlington every now and then. We actually, my father and I, just this past year helped create the Kiwanis Club of Burlington. So we're two founding members for a new international
Very
charity
nice.
organization in town.
That's great.
Manny, who was one of my former bosses, was really the spearhead for it, but we're happy to be involved.
Adam, where do you mentioned people helping people? Is that what you were
Yeah, they
alluding to?
People helping people have reached out to, I believe you've gone a couple times to the food
Yeah,
bank.
we've done it. Our group has done it quite a bit. Do you go in
About
to
4 or
pick
5
up food?
years.
Yeah. They've reached out to us for the food bank along with the Wish Tree around Christmas time in the mall. We'll sit there, help, organize, collect donations and gifts that people bring in. And it's a part of my job that I try to, keep going with. I've had a lot of support from Jerry, who's our guy in the bank that really, guides me in the ways to make.
Very nice. I didn't realize you did that.
So, Jim, how did you get involved? And I guess you were there earlier, but then you got back into politics too. So why Burlington politics?
Prior to the governmental side, I was involved in the schools. I was, because of my job, I worked nights, so I was a volunteer when Lindsay and Adam were at Pine Glen in elementary school. I was actually in the classroom with the kids. I called myself the ugliest homeroom mother that was there, the ugliest volunteer, because all of them were moms. It was just me. But I would volunteer for the PTO. I actually was the PTO president for a couple of years at Pine Glen. I was on the Pine Glen and the Burlington High School Council. Then I joined the Rotary.
And if I could just clarify, this is all while you were also a police officer in the town?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So then I would join. I later joined the Rotary Club, now the Kiwanis Club. I'm still with the Rotary, past president of the Rotary. But I got involved in the town in the year 2000. I ran for town meeting and won. I was on town meeting from 2000 to 2009. I took some time off to finish my master's. I got my master's. I wanted to get back involved with the town. I saw a couple of openings.
If I could ask you, what was your master's in?
Counterterrorism.
Wow. Do we have that in Burlington? The ability?
Any town has the potential threat anywhere in the country. So we'd rather be prepared than not.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
But then I saw a couple of openings on the Board of Appeals. I was on the Board of Appeals for 3 years. My favorite part of the Board of Appeals was being able to give a variance to someone who needed it, whether it be a family that had an aging parent moving in, or someone who wanted to build a porch so they could watch their children play in the yard. If their house or their property didn't qualify, they sought a variance.
Right.
And they have to meet certain criteria to obtain that variance.
Right.
Sometimes we'd be able to give one a variance and allow them to build what they needed, and other times we weren't. The Board of Appeals goes by very strict rules and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and sometimes you had to tell people, I'm sorry, we want to help you and we want to give you the variance, but we can't. By law, we can't. And then from the Board of Appeals, I actually helped with a couple of selectman campaigns prior to running for selectman myself, and then with my right-hand man here,
Treasurer, right?
my treasurer, and ran for selectman, and here we are a year and a half later.
I had to be at the bank anyway, so I might as well.
There we go. That makes sense now.
But just to go back to the,
So what motivated you to run for?
I love the town. I love this
okay,
town.
good.
I've been volunteering and donating my time for not just years, decades. And I go out on like the Celebrate Burlington, on a truck day, and or the Halloween Spooktacular. I love being at those events. I love seeing the families come together and having a great time. You know.
So Adam, you spoke a similar feeling that you just simply like the town so much that you want to be part of it.
Sure. Yeah.
So in that sense, like father, like son.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be willing to work to help other people just as much as you'd like to be helped too.
I have to tell you that I totally concur. I've been here just about as long as you have, and I do love that. Once in a while, there's a lot of stuff to do that I develop a lot of things to do, and I get a little frustrated. And I will say, to my wife, I think it's time we have to simplify and move out, you know. And she will give me about 100 reasons as to why I will regret it. And yes, I agree with you, and very much. And the changes have been terrific. Go ahead.
Oh, if you don't mind me just interrupting.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Your wife had surgery today. How'd she make out?
I'll tell you when I don't want you to interrupt.
Okay, would you mind answering that question?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Your wife had surgery today. How is she doing now?
Thank you. She is. It's not quite surgery. It's an ablation. They go in and and she was having a little bit of difficulty. She's probably watching. She's okay. She's waiting for.
That's good news.
Yeah, to kick in. They told her that it'll be difficult for another 2 or 3 weeks, but that after a while, hopefully, it will be. She'll get rid of the problem of her back. Thank you for asking.
Surely hope you're doing okay. Thanks. If we could just, would you mind touching on a few of the issues, some of the current issues?
No.
Okay, great. And again, if you guys disagree, that'll be just informational too. What do you think about the article that's going to be taking care of the school's shortfall in funds? They had either 880,000 or 1.7 mil, I'm not sure the exact figure, but all of a sudden they decided they were short and they're going to come to town meeting. What are your feelings, each of you, about that particular proposal? Any thoughts on it?
Well, before we answer that, just to put into practice what we were saying earlier about being upfront about how we do our business, we do have relatives that work in the school. So we have my sister, obviously my dad's daughter.
So you'll need to abstain then.
Well, if I'm not benefiting financially, then I think I definitely want to make sure that the people of Precinct 6 get to have a voice too.
Sure.
We have my aunt also, my dad's sister-in-law who works in the school too. So just to let people know, just so that there's no confusion.
Appreciate you being above board.
Sure.
And so how do you feel about the additional funds and money just coming out of? Oh, and if you agree with that proposal, where would you take the money from?
Well, first I'll say that the way I at least approach decision making is I try to be as deliberative as possible. Because you never want to catch yourself in the situation that you rush to a judgment and then find out a crucial fact after the fact. So
we're saying at this point in time.
Well, I'll give a couple, things that I am considering, and then I'm sure my dad will offer his own opinion as well. But first of all, like I was saying, I'd like to gather all the facts. So, like you had mentioned, we don't really know yet exactly what the sum of money is. So that means we don't actually know what the deficits or over expenditures were. And once we get those pieces of information, I think we can do a deep dive into anything that needs to be looked at. But I'll also say that Burlington is known for its great reputation with its school system as a big draw for new families that come to town. And so definitely doing anything to protect and increase the reputation, that good reputation that the schools has, I think is a good move for the town. I'm also kind of a numbers guy working at the bank, so making sure that we have the proper ability to look at town expenditures, it is taxpayer money, is also necessary. I've neglected a little bit watching some of the school committee meetings, so I do have homework to do. But when all those moving pieces come together, I think we'll have the ability to get a good picture. But I can definitely understand some people in the town when they look at the situation and they say, well, if I did a huge budget overrun like that, I would be out of luck. I can't have why, and it's my money too that they're spending as a taxpayer. So I would say that concern is definitely warranted, and it's something that makes Burlington what it is with that citizen input. A lot of towns our size or our I guess economic scale, I guess you could say too, don't really have a big avenue for citizen input because they've moved to like city councilors or things like that. But Burlington has a good way and good amount of avenues for people who just aren't necessarily in government to still have a part.
Sure. Jim?
Well, one of the things I've learned in my first year and a half with the Board of Selectmen is the Board of Selectmen has and will probably always not take positions on school issues. It is, from my understanding, has always been that way. There are 3 other boards or bodies, so to speak, that do vote on school issues. That's be the Ways and Means, the school committee, and eventually the town meeting. So in keeping with the ways the selectmen have run decades prior to me getting there, I don't see that changing. But as far as the funding part of it, at this point, we don't know the final dollar amount, as Adam stated. I don't want to see the taxes raised to cover this. So at this point, I can tell you my opinion is I tend to agree with Mr. Sagarino and that stabilization is the best option. Nobody wants this, and a decision needs to be made at this point. I'm just saying I tend to agree with Mr. Sagarino as far as stabilization account being the proper channel at this point.
Right. Right. I agree. I agree with Mr. Sagarino, and I agree with you too. I think that is probably best bet for the town, simply because I guess the fund is funded, or there's enough there are enough funds in there so that whatever the number is, it's well within what they can afford. It's unfortunate that this whole incident has taken place. I'm hoping that they are able to, and I watched the Mr. Conti, and he was really quite moved about the whole thing and the fact that it happened on his watch. And I know him. I've worked for him. I've worked for him for a little bit. I think he's honorable. I'm sure he's honorable enough to make sure that it'll never happen again. Unfortunately, we'll have to bite the bullet, as they say, and one way or another, the money has to be paid, because we don't want to get into keeping the creditors at bay, because that only makes for a situation that gets worse.
My concerns would be that I heard just before I joined Ways and Means that the school would typically come back for additional funds at the end of the year. That would just be expected. That was routine. So I hope that we wouldn't be starting that again.
I don't understand that. Why would they be coming for
Well, they always either lowballed it or just wanted to get something through and then came up with the real figures at the end. That's the way at least I heard that it had worked. And so I hope we at least stay away from that. I think also if we're going to go into stabilization fund, then it should be because of an emergency. Either the state came out with new regulations that we automatically had to comply with. There was no money set aside because we couldn't anticipate it. So in that sense, I could see, okay, now we have to do something. We could legitimately take it out of stabilization. But absent some sort of emergency spending, I would like to see it come out of the next year's budget, where they would typically have half of all free cash would go to the school committee. I'd like to see that scaled back, just so there's a little more accountability on the part of the school chair, but also on this part of the school committee. I think that they could be doing a little bit better job overseeing some of the funds, because this is the second fund now that there's been questions about. So I think some attention needs to be paid there. I'd like to see it combined with, okay, what are we going to do to prevent this in the future? And
Right.
do we get a
That's-
midterm report?
That is the most important question.
Yeah, because
right
that is a huge department, and a lot
I
of
know,
money goes
I
there.
know.
So it'd be worth getting a halfway through the school year update as to how we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on?
Sort of a report.
Well, I think that was discussed at the Ways and Means, that they wanted more reporting.
Yeah.
So I think, again, learning from our mistakes, that there'll be more reporting. Again, I don't want to speak on school issues because I'm not on that board.
If I could just
Sure.
interrupt on that, not interrupt, but just add, you are a citizen of the town, so you should have an opinion over the results of department overspending to the extent that it has. You'd have to have an opinion of that, just being a citizen of the town, and an aware citizen.
I'm sorry, what was that?
An aware citizen, somebody
Right.
who's aware of.
Oh, as most citizens, and I've seen the outrage, so to speak, on Facebook, and I know people are upset, and a lot of citizens are upset. So I'm just hoping that we do learn from our mistakes, if there were any. I don't know. That's not my realm. Is the school committee.
So you're intentionally not taking a position? Could you just give an opinion, not an official position, not a selectman opinion, but an opinion as
Well, again, drawing the fine line, I'm here as a selectman, so I'm not going to discuss that on a personal level because I'm here as a selectman.
Okay, later on we might take that away so you can speak freely. I appreciate what you can say. Any further thoughts, Adam, on that particular issue?
Well, I would say that as somebody in town meeting, the body of town government that really tries to control the spending of the town. My first concern, if any money is spent on schools, is that it benefits the students first and foremost. I'm not that far removed from going to college, and I still remember, I still have nightmares about waking up not having done a project on time. So maybe over time that kind of memory will fade. But so essentially, I would like to make sure I have, before I do anything, a full understanding of the whole school budget, and make sure that what we're spending is spent first and foremost on the students. Not saying that we aren't now, just saying that as somebody who, it is definitely a numbers person, I'd want to make sure that I'm acting out of, right intelligence rather than emotion.
I have my turn.
Sure.
I would like to know how Mom puts up with the two of you.
Well, she shouldn't have to argue over the TV remote that night when we're at meetings. So,
And she doesn't get
No,
a
but I
copy.
mean, you're coming and you're going, or vice versa, and it must be kind of tough.
The mom doesn't get a copy of their texts to each other.
She gets alone time. I think she's quite happy with that. So
yeah, it's the one night in the
No, it
house.
must be
of
tough
politics.
because the two of you, I mean, when you have meetings, and then I'm sure you have meetings,
we both try to keep calendars on the fridge. I sometimes forget to put mine up, but
Tell her to go to the website.
so another meeting, another meeting.
But one thing I like to say is that we, as much as we have fixed schedules, we definitely in those hour here, hour there, still have time to just be at the house and be a family. I've definitely as a personal hobby, I've taken up cooking. I really enjoy it. It's creative. It's experimenting. It's something that kind of gives me a chance, to make something that you have to do anyways, still give you some sort of reward. And I definitely learned that from both my parents, and it's something that I get to return the favor in now by making my dad. He likes steak au poivre, so every now and then I'll cook up a steak and.
I bet he appreciates that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I may have taken up a hobby of eating Adam's cooking.
Yeah.
So, it's quite evident, but we both enjoy cooking, and that's one of the things I like to do in my free time. Adam is a little more adventurous in the spice realm. He likes to try a few more spices
Yeah.
than I would. I'm more of a traditionalist in that capacity, but he comes up with
It's
something
fun.
fantastic. It is.
It's fun. Jim, how do you see Burlington 810? Maybe it's a good question for both of you, actually. Where are we going, especially with these big homes that are being built? Are we going to be something akin to what Lexington is in 20 years? Is this
If I
going
could,
to affect those folks who don't have the funds to live? In other words, and I know there are state laws that govern all of this, but personally, what do you think?
if I could predict that, I'm gonna go buy a lottery ticket after I leave here. You really can't predict the future. Yes, we are getting bigger houses. One of the things when I ran for selectman, and I still firmly believe in, is our aging population. I would love to see more senior housing in town. To do that, you'd have to build, and then people complain about new buildings, and it's almost like a catch-22. We need senior housing. Where are you
Yeah.
going to get it? Well, now they're adding more buildings. So there's, again, now we're taking land and building, but we need this. But if you put it up, people are going to get upset about it, but we
Right.
need it. So I would love to see more senior housing. I know there are residents that want to stay in this town. I want to stay in this town.
Yep.
I'm on the threshold
I don't
of,
think we have any choice at this point, do
Well,
we? Well, a little bit.
no.
Yeah, but
Well,
Anyway.
in part because of expenses, I've had to put my house on the market. So I
And-
wouldn't mind seeing the senior housing.
It-
I'd really be in
it-
favor
it-
of that.
I think
But I
that is the
understand
one item.
We've already used up all the land, though. We've built
Right.
other things there.
That's the one thing I don't think anybody will argue about is we need senior housing. We have an aging, the baby boomers are getting into the senior citizen age now. I'm a baby boomer. I don't consider myself a senior, although the stack of AARP cards I get in the mail would probably make you think otherwise. But we have to seriously consider looking at how we're going to house our seniors.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a baby boomer, and normally I'd be a millennial, but in Burlington I'd say I'm generation mixed use. Like that's a lot of the housing and amenities, I guess you can call them, that people in my age bracket really look for as the convenience, I think, of it all being in one spot.
But back to your question, right now the mall's proposing a redevelopment.
Right.
And you look at Market Street in Linfield, those types of malls now are adding residential components. I'm not saying the mall's doing that. What I'm saying is the mall is going through a rehab or a renaissance period, so to speak, because the traditional malls are fading or not as profitable as they used to be because of the online shopping and whatnot.
Exactly.
So they've got to look at alternatives for them to thrive and survive. In fact, I believe they're having an informational meeting for town meeting and other officials Thursday,
Thursday night.
Yep.
Yeah.
because they've got to change with the times.
Yeah.
So the Burlington Mall is going viral, if I hear correctly.
Well, I wouldn't say viral. I just think they're looking at new and innovative ways of trying to
Modernize,
be
stay.
an integral
stay
part of
relevant.
Because when back in the day, they were the only thing around.
We're hoping to. We've already contacted the gentleman. I think he's assistant vice president, if I remember correctly. His name is Mr. Phipps, and I've contacted him and asked him if he would come on, and he said we're not quite ready yet. I think that's what they're going to talk about Thursday night. Is what they hope to get. And I don't understand what they're doing with the auto center there. That's going to stay a separate building?
That building is being knocked down, and a new building is going up. But it's
Oh.
going to be almost like a baby mall within the mall.
Okay,
It's going to be mixed-use stores and restaurants, but it'll be a separate building.
okay. Oh, wow. So they've got a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah, and just to bring up something that I've been trying to think of, over the last year or so, and how to be an effective town meeting member. Like you said, malls in general are undergoing changes, and given the fact that Burlington has become, I guess you could call it a destination for people, outside the town too.
Yep.
People will come here from other towns to shop, eat, have recreation time, things like that.
Yep.
That I think now, instead of just discussing, developments or zoning or planning in the sense of what does Burlington need, but is this something also that in the, regional area that is going to be a good fit too? We could say that Burlington doesn't have, like a Home Depot, but if we're building a Home Depot on the town line next to a town that already has a hardware store very accessible, we can look at Burlington isolated and say we need this, but regionally or in the surrounding areas.
So you're saying we should look out a little bit more in order to determine, before we determine what we would bring in, what we would develop.
Yeah, and I think that's been happening, definitely. We've seen unique businesses pop up. And I think that it's something that, what I was trying to say, would become more important over the next few years.
Yeah.
I think you'd see organizations like Middlesex 3 Coalition becoming, a good partner for the town, because being aware of what's happening in Woburn, for example, with Woburn now redoing their mall as well.
Yeah.
Are we doubling up on things that's going to also be accessible one town over, or are we having something unique that will?
I have to assume that they're doing a lot of.
Oh yeah, their
research to
business
find it
interest
out,
definitely will.
They're not
I
going to
think
put up.
Wobur's adding 400 residential units to their mall, or in that mall area as well.
But you mentioned something that was interesting. Is that a mall that now extends so that they have not homes, but they have living quarters for people. I had never
Yeah,
thought
if
of
you
that.
go to Northborough, when we used to go to Wegmans out there before
Yeah.
they came to Burlington, you'd see the townhouses and then the retail and commercial. You go to Market Street in Linfield, you see the Whole Foods, then you see a few restaurants, small retailers, and then the
apartments,
and
the
co- yeah.
condominiums.
So that seems to be a trend with malls. Like I said, right now, as far as I know, there's no plan for residential at the mall. But malls need to adapt to
Yes.
the environment and the economy.
Yeah. Or die
Right.
if they don't. Yeah.
So, Adam, we heard your dad's opinion or where he'd like the town to go, and that would be to take care of an aging population. That's a great vision. What would your vision be for the town for 10 years out from now? What would you like to see the town of Burlington become?
Just like my father said, first of all, we do have to take care of people that we already have in Burlington. Our residents right now should be our top priority. So, senior housing and affordable housing definitely is something that the town would benefit from having more of. And then,
Even though you're not part of that generation, you'd still like to see that.
I think he's trying
Well-
to throw me out. So
well, either that or I'm looking out for it.
yeah, I know.
We have a lot of resources in town, so we have a lot of options. Personally, I also think, I've tried to read a lot on the Mass Municipal Association website, because they give you, a paragraph or two on a topic. It's not a huge thesis you have to read like 20 pages to get a grasp of something on. You get to be in the know very efficiently. And one thing that I saw, I believe it was Harwich, I might be wrong, they had an older municipal-owned building. They turned it into a cultural center in the town. So now they have the rooms that were used to be offices turned into studios. People can rent them out for whatever individual needs they might need or have. And I believe it was $150,000 that they generated in the first year alone from that.
Wow.
And they're going to expect to, I think they said somewhere along the lines of double the amount of resources that they put into it, because it's such an effective use of something that was old but is now
Right.
being, transitioned to something that, Burlington, I couldn't really point to necessarily say like the cultural district or anything else, but it's a need that a lot of people would have, considering we have like great music programs in our schools. We have a great diversity in our population as well.
Yeah. We do. We do.
And I want to touch briefly on what's happening on each of the committees that you serve on. What's happening with the Board of Selectmen? What are some of the hot issues? And then also the Bylaw Review Committee. What are the issues that you're currently working on? Who would like to start?
I'll start. We've, like I said, the water, we just voted to lift the full water ban last night, so,
So those calls can now stop. right?
well, I'm sure they won't stop, but they should slow down a little. One issue that I'm really concerned about, or I should say, is the town should be concerned as a whole, is this issue of, it's called small cells. And what that is they're 5G antennas, but the intent is to find gaps in cell service, but in order to do that, they have to install these small cells on top of utility poles. So every town, all the towns are starting to deal with this, as well as Burlington. So we're actually, there was a proponent before us for the last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I requested a continuance to, I believe it was September 17th, to have a special Board of Selectmen meeting dedicated just to that
Just to
topic.
that.
Because it's going to impact the town, it's going to impact the residents.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of unanswered questions. And
What are those unanswered questions you'd like to get answered? Anything
well,
about safety?
the proponent last night said, just refer to an affidavit from an RF engineer, and the RF engineer's affidavit said Verizon has identified gaps in service. So I asked, can you identify the gaps for me? And because I had nothing, there was no evidence given to us that showed gaps.
Okay.
So before we move on, I want to make sure I have all that information. I want to make sure all the residents have that information, because it's not going to be one. The first proposal is 7 small cells, where the second proposal is 7 small cells right after that. And then where do we go from there?
Right.
Does that mean, oh, there's a gap in this neighborhood, so let's put one here? And then could that potentially pit neighbor against neighbor, saying, oh, I don't want that in front of my house, put it in front of that house? So
Yeah.
the town has to look at, that's a hot topic that I think we
Yeah.
really have to start
I
focusing
think it's a little hotter also because I'm hearing a lot of safety concerns that'll actually start frying people, start cooking people.
Well,
I've heard some complaints of other police departments that have complained about the 5G.
okay, I'm not aware of that. And again, it's an unanswered
Something
question
you might
that
look
we
into
need
though, I
to,
hope,
we
hopefully.
have to address.
Great. Okay, super. Any other hot issues that are going on how about becoming a city? Has Board of Selectmen given up on that, or
Well,
is it still kind of
that's
an
not a Board of
ongoing-
Selectmen driven issue. What happened was a resident proposed a town government review committee. That committee just presented last night. I don't see the town of Burlington becoming the city of Burlington. What I think the idea was to look at what we have for boards and committees and look for any overlap, any weaknesses, gaps, I use that term again.
Sure.
But to see, could we streamline a charter that was written over 50 years ago? I mean, it was written in the 60s. Should we change because of that? Do we still need certain committees that were formed decades ago?
Those are all basic,
But-
obvious questions.
I don't
yeah.
think the intent, and I'm quite confident the intent is not to become a
Become a
city. And the
city,
Board of
no.
Selectmen never proposed anything like that.
No.
Maybe it's just some of the individuals I've heard or comments that have been made.
Well, people are entitled to their comment. That's their
Sure,
First
definitely.
Amendment right. But when someone says something, it doesn't mean
Okay.
that's what someone else is doing.
Adam, this would feed into the bylaw review committee, which you're chair of. Has this issue come up, or what are some of the other issues, bylaws that you're thinking of changing, modifying?
Well, we haven't really discussed any, major overhauls of the town government, mainly because, like we were talking about, we have the government review committee to do it. We wouldn't want to double up the effort and neglect other things that we could be more productive on. Some of the things that we like to do as we come across them, are just citation fixes. Something that was, 2.1.5 is now 2.1.6, but a different bylaw still references to 0.5, and making sure all the pieces of the puzzle still fit properly together. And so the other things that we focus on a lot about are, let's see, right now we're talking about, for example, the 2/3 vote requirement in some issues in town meeting. I think we're getting a signal here. I think we're 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. So, for example,
Next time, just throw the shoe at us or something.
Did she signal us time?
3 minutes.
2 minutes.
2. 3.
Yeah.
All right,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit
Sure,
under.
sure. No, I'll try to wrap up quick. Like some things we have to have a 2/3 vote on, and the moderator has been calling a 2/3 sometimes, and we have, because it's so obvious, have not done an official hand count. But because it's so obvious, the Attorney General has said, these aren't necessarily disputable, but because there's something on the book saying you need a proportion, you should probably have a way to prove it. So having the moderator call a 2/3 when it's pretty obvious rather than taking the time to count each individual person and things like that, just streamlining a little bit of what we do. I'm trying to think. I mean, you came to a couple of our meetings, so you heard a little bit of our discussion about construction hours. That's one of those things, actually, if we want to go all the way back to the conversation about conflicts and, father and son on the, working on the same issue. It's a bylaw that governs construction hours, but it's a selectman who,
Supposed to provide a means of enforcement.
correct. And if the business hours are closed,
So
then,
how do those discussions go?
well, he gets the minutes of the meeting, everything that's public info.
Did you come up with did you want to be on the bylaw, or were you appointed to it, or?
I was appointed by Sally Willard, who was the moderator at the time.
Oh, right.
When I abstained about the vote about Board of Appeals and things like that because of the potential conflict.
So that was your first choice. So.
It was one of them. I wanted
was
that.
one.
It was that or the human resources and things like that, because one thing that I thought was a good thing to focus on was because of how diverse our town is. Making sure that, say a school calendar or a town paper was published in, extra languages, for example, if needed.
It's amazing the ramifications of the responsibilities at all levels. By the way, I think you have a terrific chief. We've had him on the program, and he's a very likable guy.
Well, he watches BCAT, so I'm going to say I agree with you 100%, Pat.
If I could say we have a terrific force.
Thank you.
It's a very, all gentlemen, they're all, at least the ones I've met.
Well, the
they've,
gentlemen and the ladies, too. We got quite a few ladies.
Are there?
now.
Okay, I just say I haven't been stopped by one of them.
We're down to 30 seconds. If you wanted to say anything to the audience, good night, or to your family, you've got 20 seconds. Anything, Adam, you want to?
Well, I am an active town meeting member. You can reach me at adamjtigges@gmail.com with any questions, concerns.
Or concerns about bylaw changes.
Sure.
And again, Jim Tigges, Board of Selectmen. I'm in on the website, my email, my phone. It's what I signed up
Come
for.
knocking on
Yeah.
his door if necessary.
Take them up on it,
And
folks.
that's happened.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Well, listen. I think we're out of time. I want to thank you. Thank you very much. You
fun.
very good. You elucidated a lot of. We covered a lot of
Could have
ground.
gone on for another hour.
Yeah.
It goes by fast.
Well, I love talking
It
about the town. I really
I'm
do.
always amazed. It's just it's so quick.
And I think we need more town talk too, so I hope we can have you back, both,
Yep.
the two generations, different responsibilities. Come on back.
Have you ever
Thank
done a show on how diverse Burlington is as far as cultures, religions?
We're still on.
I
Oh,
think
we
they're
are still on.
They're still taping, but
Thank you for tuning in. We hope to be able to announce a program for a bunch of programs, as a matter of fact, for September, the next time that we meet. And I thank you all very much for tuning in, and thank you to you two for being here. And yeah, I agree with Larry. Sometime in the future,
Well,
see
thanks for having us.
how it goes.
More than happy.
That wasn't so bad, huh?